Good morning everyone and welcome to my first WWE video. Now, most of what I've done so far, if not all, has been around live sport. This is obviously going to be a little bit different. You can also debate potentially around whether this is sport or entertainment. It is called World Wrestling Entertainment and you can view it as a performance. But bottom line is, I want to talk about it and it's my channel so I can do whatever I want. I'm about to watch last night's WWE RAW, obviously taking place in the early hours of the morning if you live in Britain. So I'm about to watch that and I'm looking to give my analysis and thoughts on it because I'm probably going to have a lot to say and it'll be good fun. So I will be back with you after the first segment and I will tell you what I think. So the first segment has just finished and Bron Breakker's little cameo at the end is what's got me giggling a little bit. I do like this attitude of his that he has when he screams at people. He did it at SummerSlam when he was saying Roman sucks, and now he's shouting at CM Punk and LA Knight saying you're 47, you're 40, you're 100 years old combined. He is a good character and I think we're going to see a lot more of him, so I'm looking forward to that. So the segment as a whole, we had CM Punk opening the show, but that was just after it was announced that the women's title match was not going to take place as Naomi was not medically cleared. I didn't realise she was injured. I don't know if it was just announced on the night and whether it's real or whether it's part of the story. We'll see. It was a match I was looking forward to, but we'll see which way that goes. So CM Punk comes out, talks about SummerSlam and how he's irritated about it, how he now vows revenge, and he's going to be even more pumped than he was before. He's interrupted by LA Knight, which isn't a surprise after CM Punk caused a disqualification the week before during the title match. Both of them made their cases for why they should have the next title match and who deserves what, with an element of respect. They are both focused on the title and likely to get on each other's nerves while they go for it, and they both want Seth Rollins. Then they're interrupted by Paul Heyman with Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. And Paul was as amusing as he nearly always is. He's one of the best on the mic. And he comes out saying, I don't like being in a French-speaking place, and this is all the French that I know. And the bit where I actually agreed with him when the crowd were chanting something, I didn't know what they were saying, and he said, we need subtitles for you lot. I could have done with that as well. But it was quite a good segment. CM Punk says, I want a piece of Bron, and Bron, whoever wants to come down, and Paul Heyman says, fine, you've got a tag team match. CM Punk accepts on LA Knight's behalf, which he isn't very happy about. So I expect when the match happens, they will probably struggle to coexist quite a bit. As for where this is going, I think we might well end up seeing at least a triple threat for the championship next time it's on the line. And we've also got Roman Reigns to think about who might make an appearance as well. But I did enjoy the segment. I think Punk and LA Knight had very good chemistry on the mic. So it was a good segment and we'll see what happens next. Following this, we had a small segment with the Judgment Day having a conversation. The women obviously still disappointed about losing 2 matches for the women's tag team titles. And then Dom comes in with El Grande Americano, saying that he effectively wants to make him part of the group. The others aren't too keen on this, but eventually Dom manages to convince Finn Balor that it's a good idea. So, we'll see what happens with this group. I'm not sure where they're heading. I don't expect that AJ Styles is done with Dom, certainly after last week. So, what's going to happen? I'm not sure. So that previous segment led into our first match of the evening, which was a tag team match between AJ Styles and Dragon Lee, and Dominic Mysterio and El Grande Americano. So, 4 high flyers in the ring, and that makes it quite good to watch. I am a fan of that sort of wrestling. And from what I saw of the match, I think it was quite decent actually. I'm not sure how much of it Netflix cuts out, but there was quite a lot of good movement and a lot of back and forth, which I did enjoy. I particularly did like the moment when Dragon Lee performed a move that then turned into a Styles Clash. As for the end of it, I thought it was quite funny the way that Dominic Mysterio pinched the metal plate and attacked AJ Styles with it. I do get a bit bored sometimes of heels using dirty tactics to win. I know that's what they're for unless they're powerhouses, but sometimes it would just be nice to see them win by wrestling well. But that's me personally. So an enjoyable opening match, and I will see what comes next. Up next, we are having a match between Sami Zayn and Rusev, which is another one I'm looking forward to, actually. I don't know how it's going to end. We get the small segment before it when Sami Zayn is saying, I want to be in the World Championship picture, which is something I'd like to see because I'm a fan of his, and I like a lot of the angles that we've had. But for tonight, it's focusing on Rusev after what happened the previous week. And we do have Sheamus coming in and the general manager saying, this is not continuing with Rusev. And Sami Zayn then says, please stay out of my way when I have this match tonight. Sheamus gives his word, but says as soon as it's over, he's going to have Rusev. So is it going to make it that far or is it not? I'm about to find out. So I'd say it was a relatively solid match with some good moves from each. I particularly like the bit when Rusev pinched Sheamus's move by punching Zayn in the chest, obviously continuing the rivalry. And it did continue when Sheamus came out after the match and they began to brawl into the crowd. I quite like this rivalry, actually. It reminds me a bit of when Seth Rollins stabbed the Shield in the back about 10 years ago, and him and Ambrose couldn't stop attacking each other every week and just going and going for it. So it's looking with this rivalry like we might well be heading for a showdown at a pay-per-view, quite possibly Clash in Paris, and I can see it being something like a street fight or that kind of thing. So we'll see what happens more with that. As for the match itself and the way it ended with the MFT interrupting and attacking Zayn, which is something I'm a bit disappointed with. I'm not a huge fan of these factions of about 4 men coming out and attacking one person, and it also means that that's 2 matches in a row now. We haven't really had a clean finish, but it's to be expected, I think, because I'm not sure they feel they can afford to give wrestlers clean wins and bury the opponent during these shows. So it looks like the MFT aren't done with Zayn. It wasn't just a one-time thing. So if the rivalry does go in that direction, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Jacob Fatu. It could be a quick fix, this rivalry, and Zayn could end up in the world title picture. I don't know, but that's what we've got the future weeks for. Following this, we've had quite a good scene with the general manager where in the space of about a minute he deals with 3 things at once. For a start, he gets the MFT at the building, then he goes on at the referee about separating Rusev and Sheamus with quite a big temper, I might add. And while still in that temper, he's approached by the New Day and the man who is trying to replace Big E. And they are rather funny at the moment with this whole mourning thing that they're doing and going, this is unfair, you know, this has made me sad and that kind of thing. But obviously the wrong time to pester him, as Xavier Woods now has to face Penta next week. As for the next match, it is going to be between Io Sky and Roxanne Perez. Roxanne Perez talked her way into that match earlier by accident by trying to tease Io, who was upset about not having her world title match, and the manager arrives and says, well, it would be a good idea if you two were to face off against each other. Roxanne didn't look too pleased about that. She knows she is fighting a former world champion, and a rather good one at that. I've got a lot of time for Io Sky. She is the favourite of my main friend, who I tend to watch the WWE with, and she's great to watch in the ring and a very good character as well. We love the fact that if she met any of us, she would probably make out that meeting us was the greatest thing in the world, and it's made her extremely happy. So we had that little segment, and just before heading out to the ring, she ran into the Kabuki Warriors, who offered her their support, but she did decline to have them at ringside. So will they end up getting involved? I don't know. If we have something like Raquel Rodriguez getting involved and it becomes an attack on Io, then they might well come and interrupt. But that remains to be seen. So let's see what happens as Io heads out to the ring. Well, I've got to say that has been my favourite match so far. I've always got tons of time for anyone who can do things like handstands or the dives or the somersaults or anything that I can't do, basically. I think probably the extent of what I could do in WWE would be the ring announcer. So that was really enjoyable to watch. There were a lot of good moves in there, and it was really quite a solid match for pretty much all of it. But I did call it, I'd say. I expected that Raquel would get involved in some way, and she did. She started trying some dirty tactics by distracting the referee, and the Kabuki Warriors backstage said, "We're not having that," and they came out to try and help. The issue was that Roxanne managed to break free, and Io nearly ran into them, meaning Roxanne could do a roll-up and get a win. So that was interesting, and it will be interesting to see where it goes. You can imagine that Io will do what we have had in a few situations where she goes, "I said I didn't need your help, why have you come out?" And there's a little bit of tension in there. So we will see what happens with that. But again, really enjoyable match, and I think there's still quite a good future for both of these competitors. So on our next backstage segment, I think Jackie said it best. A little tension between Jey Uso and LA Knight. Jey Uso has an interview. He says, "I was away last week, had some family business to take care of, but I'm back here and I want to try and get the World Championship back. I never had a rematch for it." LA Knight comes in and says, "Back of the line." So that's potentially someone else being introduced into the world title picture. I expect soon enough we will get some answers on that. So a little bit of an answer on the Io Sky Kabuki Warriors side of things, as we get another small segment where they're arguing largely in Japanese, and in the end, Oscar, however you're supposed to pronounce it, gives her a shove in anger, and they stand there looking surprised. So we definitely haven't had the end of this, but what's going to happen with it, I am not sure at the moment. Up next, now this could be very interesting. It's the match that Becky Lynch challenged Maxine Dupree to the previous week for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, Becky obviously thinks she's being clever with this, and it could end up being quite an easy win for her as she aims to assert her dominance. I don't think it will be quite as simple as that. We have Nikki Bella, obviously, who had the argument with Lynch last week. There's every chance she'll get involved in some capacity. But we also have a potential chance of a Paige situation, shall we call it, where AJ Lee challenged her to a match for the Divas Championship around 10 years ago. Paige said, "I'm not ready for that," but she was forced into the match anyway and came out winning it. So that will be a bit of a surprise if they want to throw Dupree into things. And it also means we could see a return of Lyra Valkyria into the title picture, because a change of hands would mean she is allowed to challenge for it again. So I'm intrigued to see what is going to happen here. After watching it, it gives me a little bit more of an idea of what I reckon the match was actually about. It looks like especially with the attack on Natalya after the match, that they may be looking to bring her in as Becky's next rival for the championship, and this match with her friend Maxine was a way of sort of riling her up a little bit. So the match itself, it did what it needed to do in that respect. It was clear, I think, that Becky's work in the ring looked a lot sharper, a lot more polished than Maxine's, but I expect they haven't worked together an awful lot, and Maxine's still a lot newer to it than Becky is. So it may come in time. Maybe this match means that they want to start bringing Maxine in a little bit more, and we'll see if she improves. I mean, there were some good moves in there, obviously. So we'll move on to what's next. Not a huge amount of the programme left to come. Following this, we had a set of 4 non-match segments in a row. So this started with Seth Rollins backstage with Big Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker saying, excellent, Punk and LA Knight don't like each other and they've got to deal with you tonight, so I don't have to do anything, I can get out of here, see ya. So that was Rollins' input for the evening. I don't know if he's going to get involved in the main event or not. It moves on to a video of Bayley talking about herself and being vulnerable and talking about how badly she's doing at the moment. Quite depressing, actually. And this leads into the third part, which is an interview with Lyra Valkyria, who seems to be doubting herself a little bit and worrying, but ends up saying, no, I stand by what I said last week. We need to go our separate ways. She cost me this, she cost me that. So this is what's best for us, and the way she feels at the moment is not my fault. So I don't know what they've got in mind for where these two go, but something tells me it's probably not the end of whatever's going on. Now, moving on to the final segment, it's Io again. She's made a lot of appearances during this particular episode. It starts with Stephanie Vaquer coming in and saying, you're not the only one who's disappointed about not getting a title match. And then, to massive cheers, it's Rhea Ripley, who obviously doesn't have a match tonight, but she's made an appearance, and she expresses a level of sympathy, but she says, look, can you really trust your friends? And tries to stir the pot a bit. So, I'm not quite sure what they're going to do with that, especially with Ripley having that involvement. Io reacts angrily to it, but you can tell that the words have sunk in a little bit and she's possibly having doubts. So, moving on to the main event, it's about to start. It's going to be the tag team match. I can't see it finishing clean. And I don't know who's going to get involved. As I said, Roman Reigns could be about, hasn't made an appearance tonight. There's Rollins as well. And whether it'll end up with a dodgy win or a disqualification and people just fighting each other, I don't know. But I am about to find out, and then I will give you my concluding thoughts. The main event goes pretty predictably, with quite a good match. All 4 men looked good in the ring, which they should, with it being the main event. But I do like that we're seeing a bit more of the wrestling talent of Big Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, because they are good wrestlers. I felt that during the SummerSlam match against Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, that they showed us quite a lot. So I enjoyed the match, but as I said before, I knew it wasn't going to finish clean. And I was right about Seth Rollins deciding to interrupt. What I didn't call correctly was who was going to balance it out. I did think Roman Reigns would be around, but he obviously wasn't there that particular night. And it was Jey Uso who came out with a steel chair to try and balance things. And Adam Pearce comes out at this point and says, Seth, I've had enough of you, so it's going to be a fatal 4-way at Clash in Paris. But rather than Roman Reigns being the 4th member, it's going to be Jey Uso. So Seth Rollins versus CM Punk versus LA Knight versus Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship. which is a match I'm looking forward to. I can't see anything other than a Seth Rollins win, to be honest, because they're bigging him up so much and he's only just won the title. I can't see him dropping it again that quickly. It often happens, I think, when a new champion is crowned and then they have to defend against multiple, they do find a way to win it. I can't say anything for sure, I've been proven wrong a lot of the time, but it is how I see things going. So as for the rest of it, I'll be honest, I am so bored of the main event ending with Seth Rollins and his goons just attacking everyone. How many times can we have that as a way to close the main event? It just seems to happen nearly all the time. But at least it was 3-on-3 this time and made them look a little bit stronger than just all ganging up on one person. So I think that is it for the show, really. I enjoyed most of the matches, I will say. I think a lot of the show has been about planting seeds for the future, and that's what I've tried to discuss. So we'll move on to SmackDown later this week. I'll look to do a discussion on that as well. But in the meantime, thanks a lot for watching. It would be great if you could leave me some comments with your thoughts, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me. I'm perfectly open to that, I'm no expert. I just like giving my thoughts around what I see. And if you just want to give predictions or stuff like that, that would be great as well. So thanks a lot for watching and hope you all enjoyed the show. And I will see you all relatively soon.